What's up, you fellow draft nerds, and welcome back to the Draft Hub and a happy new year to you all. This one is going to be a doozy today. We have a 2026 NFL mock draft for you guys today. No real particular reason. I just feel like entering the new year, this would be a cool thing to look at. So, this is probably going to be my last overall mock draft of the entire NFL until about probably after the Super Bowl, honestly. That's probably when I will do an NFL mock draft again after this. But we're going to start moving into 7 round team mock drafts after the commencement of the 2025 NFL season. So starting Monday morning itself, we're going to be pumping out as many 7 round mock drafts as I possibly can for every single team. So, of course, that's going to start with the teams that did not make the playoffs. And we are going to go in I haven't truly yet decided if I'm going to go in order of the actual draft order itself or flip flop around. I might like use one of those like spinny wheels that people make online and then see who it falls on. And then as teams get eliminated, I'll add the teams to the list. But anyway, that's completely here nor there. I just wanted to update you guys on what my plans are after the NFL season. Then, of course, the day after the NFL season, my playoff predictions will be uploaded as well, and that includes the Super Bowl prediction. So let's get into this mock draft here. So this one's a bit of a wild one today, a little bit outside the box. So the Raiders currently hold the number 1 overall pick. For me, there's really no two ways about it. It seems like the Raiders are hell bent on grabbing a quarterback in this draft. And it seems like Fernando Mendoza is probably the guy because we know that Mendoza is going to be in the NFL draft. We still don't know if Dante Moore is going to be in the NFL draft. So that's why I'm saying to myself, all right, the Raiders know that they want Fernando Mendoza. They basically tanked against the New York Giants this past weekend as well. So that tells you all you need to know that they want to lock up and secure the number 1 overall pick. So we're going to take Fernando Mendoza here at number 1, a hell of a statement victory by the Indiana Hoosiers over the Alabama Crimson Tide. Admittedly, this is not the mighty Crimson Tide team that we're used to of the mid 2010s and all that kind of stuff, but nonetheless, a dominant victory. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So you have the Giants at number 2, and I know people are going to say, got to trade down, got to trade down, got to trade down. So my thing is, this is not a very strong draft class, in my opinion. There are a couple of areas that have their really strong points. The wide receiver class, I think, is pretty strong. The linebacker class has the opportunity to be generational. And then you have the edge rusher class, of course, is really, really good. But yes, I understand the Giants fans want to trade down from number 2, but you have to realize there have to be prospects available that people want to trade up for. I'm not trading down just to trade down. And at number 2, with the Jets being right behind the Giants here, I'm not really convinced. I think maybe the only team that would move up to number 2 overall might be the Cardinals, but I think they would have to be blown away by Dante Moore or another prospect, of course. And I just don't really see that happening right now. And I think that the Giants are going to have to be strong armed into staying at number 2 overall. And honestly, with the needs that they have, it's kind of tough to see what team or what player rather would fit at number 2 best. I think Arvell Reese is a player that's great and is going to be amazing at the NFL level, but I think his stock has taken a little bit of a dip over the past month. He's kind of been, missing in action for the most part. Caleb Downs is a player that I absolutely love and has the opportunity to be the number 1 overall player in the class. I can't justify taking a safety at number 2 overall. And then, you got a couple other guys here as well. I think the Giants are going to be strong armed into making a selection at number 2. I don't think that they're going to be able to, trade down. And we're going to take the player that makes the most sense for me here at number 2, and that's going to be Carnell Tate. I know it's kind of crazy to take a wide receiver number 2 overall in today's landscape, but I think Carnell Tate absolutely has the goods. And I think some people are going to be like, "Oh, I can't believe that you're taking a player that's going to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense once Malik Neighbors comes back." Yeah, that might be true, but at the same time, Wandell Robinson is no guarantee to come back. He just came off of a 1,000-yard season. He potentially might get paid this offseason. There's no guarantee he's in a Giants uniform next year. It's also no guarantee that Malik Neighbors comes back and is the same player as he was before the injury, too. So I do think getting someone as talented and as well-rounded as Carnell Tate makes a lot of sense because it could just open up your offense and continue to build the offense for Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart is obviously your guy going forward. You want to surround him with as much talent as possible. And if that means taking a wide receiver at number 2 overall, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take Carnell Tate here at number 2. Slight difference between Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson for me, just a quick side note, is I think Carnell Tate has a much higher floor, where I think Jordan Tyson potentially has a higher ceiling at the NFL level. I think Tate is very safe. He's going to be one of those guys that I think is a perennial 1,000-yard receiver every single season. And he doesn't come with the injury history that Jordan Tyson comes with. At number 3 overall, you have the New York Jets. If they're in a position with Dante Moore on the board, I think they obviously go with the quarterback here. And personally, me as a Jets fan, I I think I would rather have Dante Moore than Fernando Mendoza. I'd be happy with either guy. I'd be very happy with either guy. I think Fernando Mendoza is going to be a good quarterback at the NFL level. I think Dante Moore is going to be a good quarterback at the NFL level. I just like Dante Moore's athletic ability a little bit more than Fernando Mendoza. Pardon me. So that's going to be a big reason why I would kind of lean more towards Dante Moore being my number one quarterback for this draft class. But I think Mendoza is an absolute baller in his own right as well. But we're going to say Fernando Mendoza at number 3 here. Let's not overthink this one. And at number 4, this is where this draft kind of takes a little bit of an interesting turn. So here's my thinking. You have the Tennessee Titans at number 4. They could take Arvell Reese. They could take Jeremiah Love. They could take Ruben Bain Jr. There's a lot of different ways that they can go. They could take Jordan Tyson potentially as well. So I wanna thin out the playing field a little bit for the Tennessee Titans. I think that in the current landscape, with the Kansas City Chiefs being at number 9 overall right now, and probably, well, I don't really know. Let's say they lose to the Raiders and they end up being like number 7, right? When do you think, when Patrick Mahomes comes back healthy and everyone's healthy on the Chiefs, when do you think the next time that they're going to sniff the top half of the first draft is, for the first round of the draft? I don't think it's going to be for quite a long time. So if there's a player at a position of need that is readily available at number 4 overall, if I'm Brett Veach, I know that they don't usually trade up and get aggressive and move up to, get these high profile players. Veach and Spagnolo and all those kind of guys just kind of like to sit back and take the talent that's available and develop late round talent. But why not take advantage of this, uncommon opportunity for the Kansas City Chiefs? When you're at number 9, let's move up to number 4 here, because I think Ruben Bain Jr. can solve a lot of problems for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are close to if not in the 20s, I would say, for overall sack production this season. They paid George Karlaftis a lot of money. It's not really working out, in my opinion. And I think Mike Dana, Charles Omenihu, these guys could all be improved upon in the draft itself. So we're going to make a trade here. It's going to be the Chiefs. They're going to move up. They're going to be aggressive. I'm going to think I can't really. This is a weird range, especially with no quarterbacks left on the board that are worth taking in the first round. It kind of immediately for me makes this pick a little bit less valuable for the Tennessee Titans, especially since you're drafting, in the top 10 still essentially. So I think this would be a deal that could probably get it done. I know it's a lot to trade up for an edge rusher, but I just think it makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs. Why not get aggressive? Why not get a playmaker that is just incredibly disruptive off the edge? And it fills a massive need for them as well. Ruben Bain Jr., everyone loves to say, 30-inch arms, 30-inch arms. The guy's an absolute menace and completely disruptive. Regardless of his arm length, I just think the guy's going to be an absolute monster. I think draft fatigue has really set in when it comes to Ruben Bain Jr. A lot of people just are looking for problems with him. And where, of course, he does have his shortcomings, no pun intended, with his arms, I do think he is a absolutely superb player, and I think he's going to make an immediate impact on whatever team he gets drafted by. At number 5 overall, I'm going to go with Sonny Styles here. I know this is crazy, but as the weeks go on, I'm thinking to myself that Sonny Styles is overall a better player than Arvell Reese. I think Reese is a player that you could, at the NFL level, he has a lot of appeal. You could move him around the defense a lot. He's a great pass rusher as well. And honestly, I think that's where, due to his overall strength as a player, I do think that's where his best position lies at the NFL as like a rush linebacker or stand-up outside linebacker. I think that's where his best position lies, with the ability to play, off ball and all that kind of stuff. But Sonny Styles is a defensive juggernaut. He's a player that you could put anywhere on your defense. Don't forget, he has a year of starting experience as a safety in this Ohio State Buckeyes defense as well. This is a player that you could put in anywhere. With his gigantic frame, he clogs up passing lanes. He's incredibly instinctive in coverage. He's a fantastic tackler. Really, that was my one big issue with him going into this year. And he has been exceptional as a tackler this year as well. Styles, don't let the hype fool you from other prospects. I think Styles has the opportunity to be one of the best defensive prospects in this draft. And honestly, for the Arizona Cardinals, they just need a whole lot, especially on the defense. So why not just go out there and get a Swiss Army knife type of player that could command the middle of your defense? So we're going to take Sonny Styles at 5. At 6, you have the Cleveland Browns. Let's not overthink it. You desperately need a weapon on the offensive side. We're going to take Jordan Tyson here at number 6. Pretty straightforward for the most part. At 7, you have the Washington Commanders, and a lot of different ways you can go. People are probably going to get upset at me for not taking Caleb Downs here at number 7, but I'm going to address more of a long-term need here, and that's going to be the edge rushing position. Yeah, I think that going into this season, they don't really have many free agents, but they have short-term players that aren't going to be here for more than a couple years. And David Bailey is a player that time and time again has just proven to be an absolute stud. Moving over from Stanford to Texas Tech proved to be the best decision that David Bailey probably could have made for his entire football career. He has been easily the most dominant edge rusher in college football, in my opinion, this season. And there's no reason to think that he can't immediately help the Washington Commanders pass rush long term. So we're going to take David Bailey at 7. At number 8, you have the New Orleans Saints. And again, a lot of different ways you can go. I'm kind of cooled off on that. The Saints really do not have a bad defense in the slightest. I think that they have a lot of players that they have developed over the past couple of years that have turned into very, very good players. Jonas Sanker has been really good for them this year. Kool-Aid McKinstry has been really good for them this year. They have been really good at developing talent, especially in the secondary the last couple of years. And Kellen Moore has these boys playing awesome. They're not in the market for a quarterback anymore. Tyler Shuck looks like the real deal going forward to 2026. There's no reason to panic at that position. Wide receiver could be a sneaky need here. Mekhi Lemon is still on the board. I like it. But I'm going to go with Jeremiah Love. I just think long term, the ground game for the Saints has really been poor this year. Obviously, Alvin Kamara has showed his age this year. Kendre Miller is someone that can never stay healthy. Devin Neal is a nice change of pace back from the 5th round this year. And then you just have Evan Hall and Audric Estime and all that kind of stuff. And really, I want to reset my running back room. I want to be able to get a 3-down beast in Jeremiah Love that'll be my bell cow for years to come. And honestly, the Saints were playing their best football in previous years when they were able to run the ball effectively. And adding someone like Jeremiah Love to this offense that already has Juwan Johnson, that already has Chris Olave, I think you're really building something here who has a really nice offensive line, 2 good bookend talents in Talawisi Fuaga and Kelvin Banks Jr., who honestly deserves a lot of rookie of the year praise, but he won't get it because he's a tackle. And people just love numbers. They don't love the non-sexy picks. But I think Kelvin Banks Jr. should have had a shot to be. Same thing with Armand Membu, to be honest with you. I think both of those players have been exceptional in their roles for their teams this year as offensive linemen, but I digress. And Jeremiah Love, I think, makes a lot of sense for the New Orleans Saints here at number 8 overall. Moving on to number 9, you have the Tennessee Titans. They got a little bit more draft capital in their pocket now, and the field has definitely thinned out. And I love what Mekhi Lemon could bring to the board for the Tennessee Titans, because the Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward, I said it last week, and I've been saying it for a couple weeks now. Cam Ward has been absolutely balling in the second half of his rookie season with not that much around him. Tony Pollard very quietly has had a good season for Tennessee. Tajay Spears hasn't really worked out either, but you really have Alec Iomaner, you have Chimere Dike, and then you have Chiga Kwankwo, who's really kind of leading the way. You need weapons for Cam Ward. I have loved the promise that he has shown in the second half of the season. It gives me no indication that he is not ready to be the franchise quarterback for the Tennessee Titans going forward. I'm going to get him a weapon, and I'm going to get him Mekhi Lemon. I just think Mekhi Lemon would open up this offense on so many different levels for the Tennessee Titans. He's 5'10", 190 pounds, but he has a 67% contested catch win rate this past season. He was absolutely exceptional for USC, and I think he steps in and he's the number 1 wide receiver right away for the Tennessee Titans. So we're taking Mekhi Lemon at 9. At 10, you have the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm going to take Arvell Reese at number 10 here. I think Arvell Reese would solve a lot of issues for the Cincinnati Bengals, where the linebacking core has been pretty terrible this year. It's been one of the worst units in football. The pass rush obviously is going to take a massive hit when Trey Hendrickson leaves in free agency. Then you have, Shamar Stewart actually had a really nice game against, I forget, who did they play last week? Was it the Dolphins or was that 2 weeks ago? whoever they played this past week, he had a very, very nice showing, easily his best game as a pro. So that's certainly promising. But Reese is a player, like I just mentioned before, that I think his best area lies as a edge rusher at the NFL level, with the opportunity to move all around the defense. And when you have a defensive front seven that's as poor as the Cincinnati Bengals, I think you kind of have to take a player that you could move all around and possesses the overall strength and processing ability and play recognition that Arvell Reese has. I think he'd be a complete breath of fresh air in the middle of that defense. And I'm going to take him here at number 10 overall. Can you believe it? Two linebackers going inside the top 10. Crazy year this is. At number 11, you have I was going to say the Minnesota Vikings, the Miami Dolphins here at number 11. A lot of different ways that you can go. I think for the Dolphins, the first round, or at least the first couple of picks, have to be dedicated to the secondary. I do think the pass rush does need an upgrade as well. I'm not in love with the Keldrick Falk fit. They also have spent some draft capital in previous years, very, very early on in upgrading the pass rush. Let some of those guys develop a little bit too. I think you have to upgrade the secondary. And I'm going to go, I know Caleb Downs is still on the board. I get it. But I really like what Mansour Delaney can bring to the table for the Miami Dolphins. I think he steps in and right away he is your shutdown cornerback one. He's completely versed in zone, in man, press man. He's just a really good overall corner that I can't really find too many weaknesses, or at least very finite weaknesses in his game. Mansour Delaney is an incredible prospect, and he would immediately upgrade the secondary for this Miami Dolphins team. At 12, this is pretty simple. You got Caleb Downs on the board. The Rams are just a team that scream, maximizing Caleb Downs' abilities. And I think this would kind of make the Rams defense unfair for the most part. Even though their defense has proven to be very leaky, I do think that potentially could be the downfall, where I think the Rams are the Super Bowl favorites this year at this point. I do think the leaky secondary that they possess is probably going to hinder them in one of these games. And I think adding someone like Caleb Downs, who could play all over the defense, who could play in the box, who could play single high. He's going to be your center fielder. He's just an incredible all-around player, and adding him to a Sean McVay team just kind of seems unfair for the most part. At 13, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the pass rush itself needs to be upgraded, and I think Keldrick Falk would make a lot of sense. It also depends on who they bring in. I think Todd Bowles is as good as gone, to be honest with you. Even if they do make the playoffs, this is a first-round exit team. What an epic collapse in the second half of the season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I do think this pick kind of comes with, whoever comes in and is the head coach going forward. But for right now, we're going to go with Keldrick Falk because I do love his ability. He's a player that I genuinely don't think at the NFL level is going to produce a ton of sacks, but he's going to set the edge extremely well. He's going to be incredibly disruptive, and he's going to make an impact on the game that might go past the stat sheet itself. So Keldrick Falk, I think, is a really, really good fit in Tampa with the number 13 overall pick. At 14, you have the Dallas Cowboys here. And again, another a little bit outside the box pick for me. But here's my thinking. You're paying Dak Prescott an ungodly amount of money. CeeDee Lamb's cap hit in 2026 turns into $38 million. I don't think that there's any feasible way that the Dallas Cowboys can bring George Pickens back. I don't think that you're going to allocate Dak Prescott makes like $70 million a year. So George Pickens is probably going to want close to $35 million a year in his next contract. There's no way that the Dallas Cowboys are going to allocate upwards of $125 million a season to 3 players on offense. There's just no way. I'm sorry. You could rationalize it any way that you want. That's not how NFL teams work. I know that Jerry Jones is basically the GM of this team. He can't fire himself, but that would immediately be an egregious fireable offense for any GM in football. We're going to go with a wide receiver here because genuinely, I'm not really excited about how the board has fallen. 2 top linebackers are off the board. I think this is just a touch early for CJ Allen, especially with some of the other guys on the board. Corner would make some sense here. I thought about Jermod McCoy, but Cassius Howell is also a player that I think makes a little bit of sense, but I think that we could hold off here. I'm going to take Denzel Boston at this pick. I think that Denzel Boston and George Pickens are pretty similar in a lot of ways, especially in the contested catch situations. I think Boston would be a really, really nice player. And then, of course, you don't have to pay him $35+ million a year to play wide receiver. So you can kind of reset your cap just a little bit. I know that Cowboys fans are going to want to bring Pickens back because of what he was able to do in this offense this season. But I just don't think it's feasible. I really don't think it is. And Boston is a player that I think would fit really, really nice next to CD Lamb. With number 15, you have the Detroit Lions here, and I think the Lions are kind of offensive line is a potential need for the Detroit Lions. Again, I'm not super stoked with the way that the board has fallen, especially since this isn't really a great draft class for left tackles. I mean, your good prospects going forward. I mean, we'll take a look at it before I continue here. Your great prospect, Spencer Fano, right tackle. Francis Mauigoa, a player that probably could reduce inside and play right guard, but he's predominantly a right tackle. Caden Proctor's probably your best left tackle. Caleb Lomu is a really solid player that I don't know if he gets first round consideration. He probably falls to maybe the top of the second round. Jennings Dunker is a right tackle. Trevor Goosby is really good. He's a left tackle. Same thing with Caleb Tiernan. Blake Miller's a right tackle. Nicky Prongos, Carter Smith, Isaiah World has, left and right tackle versatility. And Brian Parker and Austin Barber are right tackles as well. It's a predominantly right tackle class, and you have Penei Sewell at your right tackle position. So I'm a big advocate of leaving your offensive linemen in their spot, what they were drafted in. I think reducing inside is a little bit easier than playing the opposite side of the formation, but we're going to hold off on offensive tackle here. We're going to address the secondary, and I think that Avion Terrell would make a lot of sense for the Detroit Lions. Inside, outside versatility, they would be able to put DJ Reed back in the slot where he plays his best. Terrell would be able to cover the sideline on the opposite side of Terrion Arnold. I just think it makes a lot of sense. They've been searching. I mean, they were decimated by injuries this year. I get it. But they were searching and searching and searching for answers, and it just wasn't working. Emerick Robertson, who actually had a pretty good season for them, is also a free agent after this year. I don't really see them allocating funds to bringing him back. So Avion Terrell is going to be the pick for me at 15. At 16, Baltimore Ravens. This is a pick that I've been making for a few weeks now. Peter Woods just makes a lot of sense for me here. The Ravens have a bottom 10 defensive line graded in the NFL, and Peter Woods is a player that, if you look at his stat, if you're a box score watcher, you're going to say, oh, wow, 3 sacks, 4 sacks. Wow, great for a defensive tackle. But he impacts the game so much more than that. He is a ferocious run defender. He's incredibly disruptive as a pass rusher as well. And I think he automatically makes this Baltimore Ravens defensive line that much better. Second half of this first round, kicking off with the Minnesota Vikings here. And I'm going to go with a little bit of a different way here. Secondary, yes, needs to be addressed. I think the defensive line is also something that could be addressed. Even the interior of the offensive line could be addressed as well. But here's my thinking. It seems very clear to me that TJ Hawkinson is either feeling the effects of his injury or he's just kind of past his prime in this offense at this point. So I know adding another weapon on the offense could be, kind of crazy, maybe in theory, but adding someone like Kenyon Sadiq to this offense with his athleticism, with his versatility, with his blocking ability, I think it kind of just makes this offense, it immediately jumps it up tenfold because now you have your threat in the middle of the field again. Obviously, it just didn't work out for Hawkinson in the middle of the field with JJ McCarthy. It never really seemed like they had a good rapport, to be fair, but Sadiq is a player that I think up the seam, over the middle, he has his speed. You could put him on crossers and he'll be able to break free and run for big gains. He's more of a modern day tight end where I think Hawkinson is a player that, is kind of growing more obsolete as time goes on. Obviously, he doesn't have that athletic burst that he used to have due to the injuries and stuff. So Sadiq is going to be my pick at number 17. At 18, you have my New York Jets yet again here. And this is where I'm going to take Jermod McCoy. I just think, listen, I get it. I get that McCoy is coming off of an entire season gone due to injury. But if you read reports on his injury rehab, he's a full good to go. He's going to take part in every single pre-draft cycle, interview, combine, everything like that. He's going to be ready to go. He's going to be 100%. He's already 100% and has been 100% since basically October for the most part now. I think McCoy is a player that, if he shows that he still has that still has that agility, he's going to be a player that could potentially be a top 5 player overall in this draft class. And the Jets just kinda need everything for the most part. So, really, you could throw a dart at their depth chart and they could upgrade that position, unless it's right tackle because Armand Membu is an absolute beast. But Jermod McCoy makes a lot of sense for me. The secondary just I mean, listen, I don't care what you say as a Jets fan. I don't care what pick you don't like I make. Going an entire season without an interception means that everyone should be fired. Everyone should be fired. Everyone should be released. And you should just start over with a new secondary next year. That is a preposterous stat that just, I mean, like, it's unbelievable. Even if they do get a couple interceptions or even one interception in week 18 against the Bills backups, I should say, it's still going 17 straight games without an interception. Sorry, 16 straight games without an interception is fucking bonkers. Excuse my language. But yeah, we're going to take Jermod McCoy here at number 18. At 19, you have the Carolina Panthers here. And I think the middle of the defense needs to be upgraded. I think taking an athletic linebacker that can just, blow sideline to sideline, that can cover, that can play that really well as a run defender, I think makes a lot of sense for the middle of this Carolina Panthers defense. And CJ Allen is still here. And Allen, admittedly, is a player that I'm not nearly as high on as the consensus. But I think in this situation here, I think CJ Allen makes a lot of sense for the Carolina Panthers. Immediately upgrades the middle of that defense here. And he's basically your quarterback on defense. He's going to be able to be that playmaker that the Panthers have basically been missing in the middle of the field. At 20, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm not in love with the way that the board looks right now, and I'm going to make a slight trade down here because you have the Buffalo Bills sitting at 23, and there are two teams in front of them that could potentially take edge rushers. I know that it's not likely that the Chargers take an edge rusher, but you never know if Khalil Mack retires after this year. You have Tuli Pelotu, but you're kind of running thin at the edge position, so it could be a certain contingency plan. But the Steelers have a lot of draft capital. I feel like, if they continue to add to it, they could really kind of fill out this roster, maybe make a trade for a quarterback at some point, because I really don't think that they'll be in position to take, a quarterback really high on in this draft. I think a slight trade down makes a lot of sense. And the Bills do want to trade up. So if they had a pick in between 87 and 123, I think that would be the pick. But since they don't have one here, I'm going to have to go with 87. But this is going to be the trade that we make to move up here. And I think the Bills are going to take Cassius Howell. I really do think the Bills need to upgrade long-term the pass rush. You need someone on the opposite side of Greg Rousseau. And it's no secret that over the past couple of draft classes, taking Deone Walker, taking TJ Sanders, the Buffalo Bills want to upgrade their defensive line. And Howell is a player that I think is just incredibly explosive. He's going to be your pass rush specialist and especially AJ Epinenza, I believe, is a free agent after this year too. And he's a player that I don't really think ever kind of worked out the way that they hoped. He's actually a pretty nice player, but I don't think he turned into the player that they really wanted him to be as just an overall dominant edge rusher. And I think Cassius Howell is a player that on his day has the ability to completely take over a game with his abilities. So they make a slight trade up here and they get a position of pretty big need for them, and they hop two teams that need a pass rusher. And the Dallas Cowboys sitting at 21, they go, all right, you spend your draft capital, no problem. We didn't even have our eyes on Cassius Howell. We didn't even want him at that point. I think they take an edge rusher as well, and I think it's going to be TJ Parker, a player that in the second half of the season really, really kind of bounced back. The Clemson Tigers themselves just had a down year, and a lot of their top draft prospects kind of had a down year, minus Avion Terrell. And TJ Parker was trending in that direction as well until he had a really, really strong second half of the season. He's a great run defender. He is a great pass rusher. He's very, very well-rounded. I love his size at 6'3", 265 pounds. He plays with a lot of speed, plays with great bend, great athleticism. I think he's a player that, opposite of Donovan Ezeraku, I think is going to be a really, really nice player. And there's your young pass rushing duo with Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams in the middle. So there's your revamped defensive line there after the Micah Parsons trade. So we're going to take TJ Parker there. At 22, you have the Los Angeles Chargers. And I'm going to take Emmanuel Pregnone. I know that Olo Awane is still on the board, but my thing here is that Pregnone is more, whereas Awane is that mauler, that just beastly interior offensive linemen that you just put in your offensive line and you don't worry about him for the next like 10 years. You're like, "Oh, I forgot this guy was even here. He's so solid. We never have to worry about him." Pregnon is more of that athletic interior offensive lineman that I think Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman kind of look for in their offensive linemen that are able to kick out, that are able to move to the second and third level of the defense. Where Pregnon is, where Owane is more of that 6'4", 330 of just beast. Pregnon is that 6'5", 315 pounds, has a little bit more. He's a little bit more fleet of foot, a little bit more nimble, and I think he fits the offensive scheme a little bit better than Owane does. So we're going to take Pregnon at number 22. And then at 23, you have the Steelers, who just got a really nice third round pick for moving back a few spots. And we're going to take a weapon here. We're going to take Casey Concepcion. I think that the Steelers kind of really need to, they have like 16 tight ends on their roster. All of them do different things, to be fair. So that's pretty cool how they incorporate their tight ends. But Concepcion is a player that I think could really spring DK Metcalf free. I think DK Metcalf has had a very nice first season as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I just think that it's a little underwhelming in terms of production, but that also being that he is the best option on the offense with really nothing else on the other side of him. So having Calvin Austin as your slot and putting Casey Concepcion as your wide receiver 2, or potentially even wide receiver 1 because he's that awesome, I think would make a lot of sense for whoever's playing quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I considered offensive line here, but I just wasn't in love with the fits for some of the offensive linemen, so Concepcion made the most sense for me here. At 24, you have the LA Rams, and this is where, if you've noticed, I haven't even taken a tackle yet in this draft class. Kind of crazy. But I'm going to take Spencer Fano here. I think a lot of people say Warren McClendon is your right guard, is your right tackle of the future. Well, then he'd probably be playing over Rob Havenstein already if he was. So Spencer Fano is going to be my pick. He's going to be your new right tackle for years to come for Matthew Stafford, and then eventually whoever is his successor going forward. So Fano is the pick for me at 24. And then at 25, you have the Philadelphia Eagles. Kind of similar here. You have the San Francisco 49ers at 28, where there's two teams ahead of them that desperately need offensive line upgrades. And to be fair, the Philadelphia Eagles could be in the market for a long-term successor to Lane Johnson at right tackle. So it's going to take a little bit, but I do think the 49ers move up and make a move because there's a ton of teams around them that also need offensive line help too. The Bears could use, potentially another tackle, even though Ozzie Trapilo has played pretty well up until this point. The New England Patriots need a right tackle of the future as well. So I think the 49ers are thinking to themselves, yeah, I need to move up slightly to get the player that I'm looking for here. And there's a certain player that I have in my mind here. I really don't, I don't know what the capital would be. I'm thinking something along the lines of like a 4th round pick. It's really not a crazy trade down for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, say what you will. Some people are going to be like, oh, you could have gotten the 3rd. All right, whatever. I mean, seriously, that's not really the point of the mock draft itself, but be that as it may, if you want to argue that point, that's fine with me. At 25, now the 49ers have moved up slightly. We are going to take, who I just mentioned before, Ola Owane. I think after losing Aaron Banks, there's kind of a big hole in the middle of the offensive line. Dominic Pooney has been really nice over at right guard. I think a left guard, I think Spencer Burford is not the answer long term. Owane is that mauling, just physically imposing offensive guard that I think that the 49ers really need. And I know that a long-term successor for Trent Williams is necessary as well. But who knows? You could probably swing back around in round 2 or round 3 and take Trevor Gooseby or Caleb Tiernan, and there's your long-term answer at left tackle. So Owane is going to be the pick for me at 25. A lot of different ways that you can go for the 49ers. You can go defense. You could probably go edge, interior defensive line. I get it. It makes a lot of sense, but I think Owane is a great fit there. And at 26, you have the Houston Texans here. And I'm taking Francis Mauigoa with this pick. And I know that Houston Texans fans love Titus Howard. He's had a really nice season for them. Mauigoa, this is more of an interior offensive line play for me. Mauigoa, I think, at the NFL level, isn't really going to be able to keep up with the speed of edge rushers. I think he's going to be a dominant guard at the next level. And I think the interior of the offensive line needs to be upgraded for the Houston Texans. And I think Mauigoa is a perfect fit in this nasty, big, mean offensive line. I love Ariante Ursary. I think that he's a great player long-term for them. Continue to build this offensive line, and then finally maybe you'll have a run game for the Houston Texans. I'll be honest with you guys. I think if the Texans had a run game, anything like they had in the previous years, if they had a run game like that, they would immediately be Super Bowl contender. They'd be Super Bowl favorites for me. It's just I think they're so one dimensional on the offensive side that it's kind of difficult to to call them favorites themselves. But the defense is legit, and CJ Stroud is a great quarterback as well. So Mauagoa is my pick here at 26. At 27, you have the Cleveland Browns, and we're going to take Caden Proctor here at number 27. I just think this makes a lot of sense. You need basically all upgrades along the entire offensive line. So just getting someone like Proctor, who's going to be your best left tackle prospect in this draft class, I just think makes an absolute ton of sense here. He's your new blindside blocker for the years to come, and for Shedeur Sanders and whoever going forward is going to be under center for the Cleveland Browns. So Proctor is my pick here at 27. At 28, you have the Philadelphia Eagles, who are just fresh off of a little bit of a trade down, and they get a great player as well. I'm going to take Colton Hood here at number 28. I think Hood immediately starts in this secondary. I think, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and oh God, I'm drawing a blank there for a second. And Colton Hood would be a fantastic young trio in the secondary. It is a need. Boundary corner is certainly a need for the Philadelphia Eagles long term. Their defense looks just a touch leaky in the secondary, but I think getting someone like Hood would immediately, counteract that. I think he's a fantastic fit in Vic Fangio's defense, and I love it going forward. Now, 29. Here's the big boy. Here's the moment you've all been waiting for. At 29, you have the Chicago Bears. So what I'm thinking is that this trade is going to take place earlier, not on draft night. But obviously, I can't do that here. I want to show you exactly what the trade is that I'm thinking. So I think Maxx Crosby gets traded. I made a short about it. I spoke briefly about it. I just think that it also makes sense for the Raiders because I get that there's two sides to the argument. One is the argument that I kind of lead towards where it's like you're wasting the best years of this player's career. By the time that you're able to compete, this player is not going to be nearly as impactful as he once was. That was kind of my sentiment with Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, and I'm happy that the Jets traded them. They got a great amount of draft capital. And, the other players are on teams where maybe they'll be able to succeed in a shorter term than the New York Jets. I think Maxx Crosby is a player that has exhausted his options with the Las Vegas Raiders. I think it is time. I know that they were the only team that gave him a chance in the fourth round out of Eastern Michigan. I know that he's probably loyal to them that way. I personally think Maxx Crosby, the second best defensive player in football. I think Myles Garrett clears, but I think Maxx Crosby is just so influential and so good as a run defender specifically as well. He generates so much pressure. He's constantly in the backfield making plays. He's just an unreal talent from the defense. I truly think that it's Myles Garrett at 1A and it's Maxx Crosby as 1B. And I think the Chicago Bears are a team that are one superstar away from being legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And I mean on the defensive side. I think that the Bears have had a really funny season because I don't think their defense is particularly really good. I just think they force a ton of turnovers. Now, what I mean by that is they play really good bend, don't break defense. And Austin Booker is a nice little rotational piece. Montez Sweat is a good edge rusher as well. But imagine adding Maxx Crosby to this defense. It immediately makes them a Super Bowl contender. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to make a trade. We are going to trade. Where is the Raiders? The Raiders are right here. We're going to trade 29, the first rounder from next year, and 93. This is going to be the trade. If you people think that you're going to get more for an edge rusher, I think you're sadly mistaken. No matter how good Maxx Crosby is. Maybe there's another pick in there somewhere. Two first-round picks and a third, I think, is very generous for a player that, and to be fair, you might need a little bit more because Maxx Crosby is on an extremely team-friendly contract at this point. So it might take a little bit more. All right, I'll tell you what. We'll throw a fourth rounder in for next year. Just add a little bit more. But we're going to get Maxx Crosby out of the deal. Maxx Crosby, it's a lot. I get it. Some Bears fans probably won't be willing to part with that. But I think that this Bears team has it. I think that they legitimately have a shot to be Super Bowl contenders. If not this year, definitely next year. And I think to get over that hump, I think if it takes parting with two first rounders that are probably going to be in the back end of the first round anyway, and a couple of, a late day 2 and an early day 3 pick, I think you have to make that trade. So that is the trade we are going to make. It's going to be 2 first rounders, a third, and a future fourth for Maxx Crosby. And with this pick here for the Raiders, I'm going to take Christian Miller. I just kind of think that there's so many different ways that you can go with this pick. Offensive line, I wasn't really in love with the players that were available. Romello Height makes a lot of sense as a legitimate, I shouldn't say like for like, an immediate replacement for Maxx Crosby. But I think the interior of the defensive line for the Las Vegas Raiders has been bad. The run defense has been great. They've given up the third most rushing touchdowns in football as well. And Miller is just an unbelievably consistent player that is going to be your dominant three tech at 6'4", 315 pounds. I think he's a good pass rusher who generates a lot of pressure. Doesn't really complete his pressures too much. That's something that I think with NFL level coaching he can get to, and he's an incredible force as a run defender. And I think Miller would be a fantastic addition to this new look Raiders team. At 30, you have the New England Patriots here, and I'm going to take Romello Height. Again, similar, the Patriots don't really have a lot of weaknesses on their team, but considering how cookie cutter their schedule was this year and they weren't really able to generate that much pressure, tells me that they desperately need edge help. And Romello Height, I know he's really only produced in his fifth year as a senior for Texas Tech here, but there was something different this year that I feel like we haven't seen in years prior. It feels like he finally unlocked something. Incredibly fast, incredibly athletic off the edge. I think he'd be a really nice addition to this defense under Mike Vrabel. At 31, I don't think people really realize how big of a need corner is for the Denver Broncos, but Riley Moss is not it. What's his name? I don't want to mispronounce his name, but McMillan as their nickel corner as well needs to be replaced. I think Jahdae Barron should take over as the nickel. You have Pat Surtain, and then you need to add another boundary corner here. And I really love Keith. I really love what Keith Abney would bring to the table as a cornerback too for the Denver Broncos. He's a player that does not give up catches. 10 passes broken up, physically broken up. Another zillion pass deflections. He has given up a 44.7 completion percentage against. He's been a phenomenal player this year for the Arizona State Sun Devils, and I think that he would just be an excellent addition as a cornerback too for the Denver Broncos. And then at 32 with the final pick here, I'm going to take Brandon Cisse here from South Carolina. I think that Cisse plays that big, physical, nasty secondary style that we're used to seeing from the Seattle Seahawks. And again, I think he'd be a great cornerback too on this team. I wanted to go with interior offensive line or an edge rusher. I just wasn't in love with the options that were left. And I do think corner is still a pretty big need for the Seattle Seahawks. So Cisse is a big 6'2", 200 pounds, around that big physical corner, likes to play man coverage as well, press man, which I think is very valuable in this defense here. And not only that, he's a great run defender too from the secondary. So that's a huge thing as well. And he pairs up with his former teammate, Nicky Manwari again. So, a little bit of a homecoming there for him. So with that last pick in this 2026 mock, we are going to take Brandon Cisse. And that is going to end our 2026 mock draft before the end of the 2025 season. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.